Welcome to Music Crush, a new music podcast hosted by the Flute New Music Consortium. I'm Nicole Reiner.
And I'm Elizabeth Robinson.
And announcing FNMC Presents, an album of previous commissions and competition winners performed by members of the Flute New Music Consortium. Repertoire includes works by Sean O'Pebolo, Joseph Hallman, Becca Sims, Cherie Slider, and others. Purchase a copy today. All proceeds go directly to FNMC. Flute New Music Consortium, Inc. is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Your contributions are tax deductible to the extent allowed by the law. Visit www.flutenewmusicconsortium.com for details.
So, Nicole, we just talked to Ellen Harrison. What have you learned?
I really got a kick out of Ellen. There's like a little saltiness there. She's super real. She's very down to earth and very relatable. I love talking to her.
And you found out she's from Northern Illinois.
Yes, well, I did. I mean, anytime I see the town of Streator, which is not that far from where I grew up, but anytime I see that in a bio, I remember that because it's a rare occurrence. Yeah.
I really enjoyed listening to that particular moment of bonding. Should we take a listen?
Sure.
Let's do it. We are here today with composer Ellen Harrison, whose works have been widely shared by a diverse range of performers such as Atonal, Cincinnati Soundbox, Earplay, Left Coast Chamber Ensemble, the Lydian String Quartet, Octagon, Parnassus, the San Francisco Contemporary Music Players, and the Society for New Music. Her music emphasizes a deep sonic realm full of texture and contrasting moods. Her tone can be both serious and jocular, juxtaposing impetuous activity with infernal calm at multiple levels, presenting an extraordinary variety of textures, melodic materials, and expressive gestures. More recently, Ellen Harrison was honored as the winner of the 2021 FNMC Composition Competition for her piece Beneath a Canopy of Wings for flute and clarinet. Welcome, Ellen.
Oh, thank you. Good to be here.
We're so glad to have you. And even more relevantly, we're so excited to hear you talk about your piece, Beneath the Canopy. Where did you find the inspiration and how did that collaboration come to be?
I often find inspiration from a friend of mine's poems, Norman Finkelstein. He was a professor at Xavier University here in Cincinnati for many years. And I just really love his poetry, and he's very kind about it, lets me take anything I want. So the title, Beneath a Canopy of Wings, is from I think all of the texts are actually from his book called Restless Messengers. And believe me, someday I'm going to write a piece called Restless Messengers. I just haven't done it yet. I think that's already very evocative. And so that was pretty much the inspiration. And the last movement I wrote in memory of a friend's mother. It was really a good friend of mine. Her mother was a good friend of mine too. So,
was there anything in particular that drew you to Mr. Finkelstein's poetry?
Well, you know what he said to me one time? He said that he was a romantic modernist. Now, I don't know what that would be in poetry. And I thought about it and I thought, I think I could say that about myself. I don't think that my works are really all that modern, but they seem to be more modern than a lot of people. But at the same time, I'm very melodic. And so that seems kind of more like of a romantic kind of thing. I don't know. I just like his imagery. And, I don't understand everything all the time either. And that's not a bad thing, because then you're kind of just whatever impression you have and you go with it. And I don't know. I can't really explain it. I think he's definitely into Jewish mysticism, which I don't understand at all, having not been part of that culture. But I think I find that sort of really intriguing, I guess.
Cool.
Did you want about the collaboration, right? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Okay, so Lizzie Darling, first of all, her husband was in a class I taught at CCM called the Composition Practicum, and he's a tuba player and euphonium player, I should really say. And he was such a nice guy. I really enjoyed meeting him. And he and Lizzie were going to get married very soon, or maybe they already were married, but she wasn't at CCM yet. And so he took this class and we became friends. And then she came to CCM for school and took the class too. And then we became friends. It was really fun. She did my solo flute piece one time with a dancer, also a friend of mine who had lived in Japan for many years. So that she did Lizzie played the piece which kind of sounds a little shakuhachi like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the woman wore a kimono, a real kimono, and did modern dance to it. So, we just all really got to be friends. And then I got to know the clarinetist, also just a former student of mine, started a new music group, and they decided they wanted to have solo pieces and solo clarinet pieces, as a matter of fact. So I had one, so I got to know Andrea through that. And then the two of them were in a group, Duo Cylindra,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted to make a CD. And so then they asked me to write a piece. They asked a bunch of people to write pieces. And so that's how it came about. Lucky me, I tell you.
It's really awesome to get to work with people that you enjoy. Do you find that you often work with former students?
Not always, but some of it has come about that way, yes. Of course, now I'm forgetting any other thing that came about that way, but most often through people I know.
Sure. That's really lovely. Well, as we were preparing for this interview with you, I discovered that there was a second version of Beneath the Canopy for flute and piccolo. And Nicole and I have talked to so many different composers about their feelings about deviating from an original version of a piece. What's it like to rework a piece for a slightly different instrumentation? And do you maybe have a favorite version, or am I allowed to ask?
Oh, I've never heard the other one. I only did that because somebody online was asking for people to submit duos for flute and piccolo. And then when I tried, I honestly, I haven't even looked at it in a long time. But I know it does diverge. I don't think it's the same, but it's probably pretty similar, right? But I just thought, oh, well, I'll do that. And then when I tried to do it, I couldn't get the link to work. So I gave up on it, but I still put it online. You never know. Maybe somebody would want to do it. And, but I think it's kind of fun to rework pieces, but it has backfired on me too. Because you don't have a blank page when you start, right?
Sure.
So, there's not that stress, and you're kind of like, oh yeah, but then it doesn't work. So I have a series that I originally called Solitude. I originally wrote it for cello. I then was invited by a student, once again, to go to a festival in Texas, but it was for violists. And I said, I don't have time to write a viola piece in 3 weeks, but I'll rework this one. I think I kept reworking it. I think he just needed to have me submit it. And then I also did it for another composition student of mine, high school, since 6th grade, actually, is a violinist. And when he graduated from high school, and he wanted to put on a concert on his, senior recital, he wanted to put on a piece for me. And I said, I don't have time to rewrite, write a new one, but I'll make this for you. So the last time I did it for double bass, it backfired. It really didn't work. It's just too big, it's just kind of a lumbering instrument, right? And that's the sort of like runs and stuff. Just so I messed up there, but
Live and learn.
Yeah, it taught me a lot about what not to do. That's for sure.
Sometimes the best way to learn is the hard way.
Yeah. Oh, story of my life.
So your bio has a few reviews that I feel like just really hit the nail on the head. One of the things I love about your music is that each piece has its own unique sound world. There's works about wings, there are works about landscapes, and we even found one about an international salad bar. Could you talk a little bit about what inspires you the most?
Oh, the most. I don't know. I was thinking about that, and I feel like it's hard for me to choose between text and image, because a lot of the time I've always thought of myself as a visual composer, but then lately I have been starting to be more influenced by text, but then I usually get an image in my mind from it. So, not always, but often. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's process is so different. I'm just fascinated by what sort of lights up an individual composer's creative energy, you know?
Well, so right now I'm just finishing an orchestra piece, and I will be very glad when that's finished because it was supposed to be finished half a year ago. The name of it is At the Intersection Between, forget it, I'll look it up and tell you. But the point is, it was out of a review. No, it wasn't even a review. I get these poetry emails sent to me, and I look at them most days. And a poet had described his poem. I got it. At the intersection of veil and reveal. Doesn't that sound cool? But it's very abstract, right? It could be anything. But then I saw all the textures of the orchestra sort of like sometimes, and I could see it then once again, sort of in my head, textures that are sometimes kind of foggy, how you can be with an orchestra. And then at other times, something coming through that. And some sections sort of dovetailing, whereas other sections were cut off and dramatic. So I don't know. That might be one that is a little bit more word oriented, but I still was seeing things in my head. So anyway.
Did those words come from somewhere? Is that another
poem?
Oh,
that was that. Yeah, that was not even the poem. That was actually the author talking about the poem. And I don't even think I kept the poem, which is a terrible thing. Stealing somebody's words and then not even remembering who it is. I'll have to look in my poetry file because I'm always copying things and throwing them in there.
So we've got poetry and we've got a description of poetry, but I'm really fixated on this salad bar piece. Can you
sure.
Tell us everything you remember about where that came from?
It's a great story, actually. I was up in the north of Germany with my husband, son, and mother-in-law because they're German, and so we were at the Baltic Sea and we went out to a restaurant, and it ended up being one of those kind of snooty restaurants where they have it don't have to be snooty to have a leather menu holder, but they certainly acted that way. And the funniest thing about it is, well, they weren't very nice. And I ordered just an appetizer, some noodles with I think they're called not porcini mushrooms. I forget the kind of mushroom it is, but it's a specialty up there. And it was full of sand. My thing was, and I was so intimidated by, they just didn't clean the mushrooms well enough. And I was so intimidated by the people. Of course, I didn't say anything. And they had this very flowery menu and a seasonal splash of color, a treat for the senses. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, you and your seasonal splash of color, and you give me sandy food and you're not very nice. So I just took the menu. I shouldn't even say that. I mean, my husband said, take the menu. I didn't take the weather or anything. I just took the photocopy that was inside. So I thought I could do that and get away with it. And I thought, I'm going to do something with that. So anyway, then Ellen Ruth Rose from Earplay said to me, hey, Ellen, you should write a piece for Todd and me. And I said, oh, I'd love to. And I thought, aha, and I have this menu and I've been wanting to use it, and that's perfect. And that's how it came about. So I had a lot of fun with that. That was really good. Oh, and of course, one thing's kind of sad, but the tomato salad was Stettiner Art. I don't know. I can't really pronounce Stettin, I think is the name they call the city in German. It's Stettin or something like that in Polish. But that was the first town in Poland where Jews were taken from. So I was like, oh, I didn't know that beforehand, but I just looked up the town because I thought, well, what is Stettiner way of making a salad? And I thought, wow, well, that's kind of terribly sad. So that gave me kind of a inspiration to write a very sad movement.
Sure.
But the others, most of them are, dandelion salad, you're going to make it spiky and fun. And, the first one, Pomeranian Garden, that there's so much wind up there that I just wanted to write something with lots of fast notes and, kind of flicking off, for a rest and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it was fun. Oh, and Ellen Ruth Rose and I kept share the same first two names too. That's why, it's like, oh yeah, hey, Ellen Ruth, the other one.
Oh, we noticed that you've got a handful of works for the flute. Is there anything you especially like about writing for the flute? And then on the flip side, is there anything that you find particularly challenging about using that instrument as your medium?
No, I was a flutist.
Sure.
Yeah, I started in school in the 4th grade, and my dad played flute too. And then I went to college, and I went to music ed for a year and a half, and then I changed. And that was probably a huge mistake. You have to learn all the instruments for music ed, right? Why
Right.
did I, but I wasn't really thinking. I just really wanted to study theory and composition. And so I switched. Yeah, so I was middle of the road flute player, never anything like you guys. So, but as a result, I know in my solo flute piece, there's this one spot that it's not good for finger. It's like 2 notes. It's not the end of the
Sure.
world. But most of the time I can make sure that it sits well, right?
Sure.
And sometimes if it doesn't, I will have done it on purpose, because I would always play through it. I haven't really played my own work since I went to UC Berkeley,
Sure.
because we moved to Cincinnati, and there's this conservatory here with so many really good flute players. It was like, well, yeah, and Berkeley didn't have a conservatory attached, so all of a sudden I was a star, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, I was middle of the road at Illinois, University of Illinois. I know, but whatever, I just played a lot, so, and that was fun. But
So, I mean, building off of that, Ellen, what was the experience like, if you can reach back into the annals of your memory when you were playing your works more? I mean, were there challenges to wearing both hats, being the composer and the performer, or advantages?
I don't think so. But I mean, I think it's just a lot easier than to get something performed, right? And then you're
Sure.
with performers more and stuff. So no, it wasn't that. I actually wrote a lot for flute at first because I felt most comfortable with it too. But at some point, I actually stopped writing for flute for a while because I was always giving the flute the best parts. And it was a little unfair. As a matter of fact, my solo flute piece is really a rewrite of a piece for flute and countertenor that someone had asked me to write. And it was like this little bit of countertenor going on. And now the flute was jumping all over the place. And one of my professors said, it should maybe be more equal. And that's, so I just kind of gave up on the whole countertenor thing and sort of stitched it together and wrote some new stuff. And, but then, yeah, I got back to it, and I just was so glad to. And I think I've learned in the meantime, you really have to share the wealth, give everybody in a group a chance to have something fun to play, right?
Sure.
Oh, I don't know. I like your flute favoritism, but you're not the first person we've talked to. You're not the first composer we've talked to that mentions the deficiency in a typical composer's education in terms of knowing how to play all the instruments.
Oh, sure.
So it of course it makes perfect sense that you were focusing on flute for a while, because that was a comfortable place where you could really explore your voice. In lieu of taking all those methods classes, all those wonderful, probably tedious methods classes that you didn't take when you switched out of music ed, what did you do to try to kind of beef up your understanding of other instruments so that didn't keep you from writing what you wanted to write?
Oh my gosh, I'm such a bad mother. I had my son learn violin, and he was in a pretty intensive program. It helped so much.
So you outsourced.
Love it.
Yeah, I was really bad. But I mean, so for example, I still don't feel as comfortable writing for cello as far as just fingerings go, but I actually know how to do the fingerings on the violin. Now I can't do it. I took violin with him for about 2 months, and there was like no way, I couldn't even keep up with him, and that's pretty sad. Not really sad. I think I made him practice more than I practiced, right? Yeah, and other than that, really just talking with the performers. I'm pretty comfortable with clarinet. Oh, I'm comfortable with oboe, because I've written for them, and then people have pretty much let me know what wasn't so good, right? And I would say I'm still not comfortable enough with bassoon for my own, when I'm singing.
Yeah.
Plus I kind of tend high, so
Right.
not so great for the bassoon parts. So yeah, and brass, I'd say I'm probably not good enough. I mean, in other words, I haven't written enough for them. So I don't
Sure.
mean, I just mean like I need to get over that hump still. I have
Sure.
written for euphonium though.
Nice.
I wrote a solo piece for Lizzie Darling's husband. So.
I was just going to ask.
We've noticed that you seem to have a knack for connecting with ensembles, particularly new music ensembles. Do you have any tips for up and coming composers or performers who are trying to find the right pairing of performer and composer? What makes a collaboration attractive to you as a composer?
Oh, well, definitely the chance to work with somebody and have them tell you what isn't working. And actually, I'm always open to people giving me suggestions.
Sure.
So my solo cello piece, I wrote it for a former high school student. I taught theory or I still do teach theory and musicianship for the Starling program at CCM on Saturdays. And there was a cellist from the program, and I asked him if I could write him a piece. He was in grad school for cello, and I thought, he's so good. And I thought, I've got to ask him. And, he's also a family friend. I'm friends with his parents. And he said, yeah. So when he was home on Christmas break and stuff, we would get together, and he did make a suggestion. Of course, a few years later, he said, oh, why did I tell you to do this? It's so hard. But doable, obviously, because he's played it, and so has someone else. But it's not easy to ask people that you don't know. So
Sure.
I don't even know if I've done that ever, but I've managed to make friends with people, and a lot of it is word of mouth. But I do think that what's so important is to go places and meet people. So when I went down for my students' festival in Texas, one of the pianists that was working at that heard my piece. We were talking, and then later on, she was in Voices of Change, and so I actually sent them a piece saying, I think I asked her because she had given me her email. I said, can I send you this? And that's how I got a performance. So you really do have to go to things in order to meet people, and then remember to stay in touch.
Sure.
Or even if you don't remember, people are pretty gracious, honestly. Right. And then also, your friends, make sure you keep, ask people that if you're in school, who you're studying with, to play your piece. A lot of people get really lucky, and somebody has a career, and then they take it all around and stuff. So other than that, I'm not really sure, but I think connections are really the biggest part of it. Or like applying for things like yours, right? You guys have been wonderful. So.
Okay. Networking. It all comes down to networking,
I guess. And I'm probably not probably the worst example of it, but yeah, I do think it is that.
Obviously not the worst example. Yeah, it is such a funny business because we do so much work in isolation, but that social aspect is crucial.
I've really
You're right.
enjoyed that you've mentioned at least two pieces that you've sort of built connections through your work at the CCM program. So it's your own.
There's more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote a vocal piece for that little group that I told you about, that do the new music and the early music, and I met one of the singers at CCM. Yeah, for sure. So. But you know what? I don't think I asked her. I didn't ask to write that. They asked me to do that. But I heard her sing at some other event, and she was with a friend of mine. And that night was just kind of like, I went up and I told them how great. And I said, I would love to write a piece for you sometime. And she was happy to hear that. So,
yeah,
that's how. And then since then, I've written two pieces for her, as well as then this group asked me that she's in asked me to write one. So.
Well, that kind of brings us to my next question, which is what's on your workbench now? Any collaborations you'd like to share with us?
Well, I'm finishing this orchestra piece. I thought it was finished, and then I took one last, kind of like run through, and I was like, maybe not, but it's really close. And after that, unfortunately, I don't have anything for flute coming up yet, but I am going to try to do it, maybe, I don't know if I'll be able to do it by the summer, but somebody asked me to write a solo cello piece.
Oh,
And I was thinking, I already have two, but so she wants to do a CD, and it's somebody that teaches at Miami University near her. And oh, wow, right now I'm actually her daughter just joined my theory class. So once again, there's these connections, she's going to do a CD of music by women composers. So I'm going to work on that. And then I have this song that I wrote during the pandemic for a friend from my hometown that I met. Oh my gosh. Always put your hometown in your bio. I'm from a very obscure little hometown. Sorry, I'm getting off topic here, but I went to a concert of vocalists because I sing in a kind of a community choir, and our conductor was getting together another choir with kind of professionals, and I wanted to go be supportive. And I read the bio of the singers, and there it is, Kate Tombaugh, born in Streator, Illinois. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can't be real. I'm from Streator, Illinois. It's 15,000 people at best, right? She's way younger than I am, but it turns out she went to school at CCM and she was here in town. And, she asked me to write a piece she started this summer camp, asked me to write a piece for the inaugural thing. So I went up to her, of course, because I'm like, oh my gosh, hello. It turns out that her mother was the organist at the church where my grandmother was the organist. So aren't these fun things? Anyway, I'm so sorry. I got off. I don't remember where we were going with that. Oh, right. Sorry. I wrote her a song during the pandemic for a group here in town. And I think it needs to have a couple more because singers always want sets. But I don't necessarily have to do that right away. So if I come up with an idea for flute, I might just do that too. But I think maybe flute and violin might be something to try. Right? Do you all have a lot of interest in trios, or do flutists usually like to do duos? It's easier to get together.
It varies depending on what the situation is. I think my favorite is quartets, just personally, but then looking around
with 4 flutes
personally, but then like I was getting ready to say, looking around my campus, it's a lot easier to do a duet with a single student. So it just depends on circumstances and who happens to be standing around at any given moment.
Yeah, and there's some beautiful flute trios. I mean, that could be a really nice combination.
You mean as in 3 flutes or with other instruments? Mm-hmm. Oh.
Well, I guess both. I was thinking 3 flutes, but some great flute, cello, piano stuff, flute, violin, piano stuff as well. I'm sure, as you know. You apologized for getting off topic, but it's funny that you brought up Streator, Illinois, because I kind of wanted to talk to you about that. I saw that in your bio, and I am also from a small and very unglamorous town in Illinois. I mean, Streator's pretty glamorous, don't get me wrong, but
oh my gosh, what?
And I saw that. And I am always interested to talk to other people who come from, for lack of a better term, not fancy backgrounds, just a good blue collar town with a public school band program. And
right, exactly. My first teacher was a trumpet player.
Yeah. Mine was a clarinet player, and he didn't do as much damage as I would think he would. But you come from these places, and you end up doing this, very, very refined and extremely academic work, but just coming from Streator public school band, or New Lenox is where I'm from, public school band. How did you get into composition? Did you get a chance to really explore that at all before you got to college? And
no way.
Have you ever experienced, I feel like that I have colleagues who are like me, and I have colleagues whose parents were musicians and who started cello when they were 3 and who grew up in Manhattan, and there always feels like a little bit of a divide. I can get along with those colleagues, we're friends, but there are times when I open my mouth and I say something just very painfully New Lenox, Illinois, I guess, and I just I
do that all the time.
It's such a funny thing in classical music.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I didn't even know the word impostor syndrome until somebody mentioned it on Facebook this past fall, and I thought, oh yes, that's me all over and because I mean, I didn't know any music theory until I knew what chords were and stuff like that, but I didn't really know anything when I went to school. And but I loved it. And I went to like junior band camp. No, just any, I don't know. In junior high, I went to band camp at the University of Illinois, and it was so eye-opening. We played Strauss, Rosenkavalier waltzes for band. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's actually real music. I mean, I didn't call it real music, but there was like something other than, whatever the usual marching band stuff that I played usually. So, I started in music ed, and I really didn't make any of these connections that I was talking about as an undergrad, because I felt that I was a terrible composer. So I was really, kind of intimidated. But and I think that to some degree that it stuck with me. But that's actually, started to dissipate because I finally allowed myself to be melodic. That was one of the big problems. I went to school in the 70s when University of Illinois was full of very experimental kind of composers. And then I went to school in Germany, and at one of my recitals, or one of the recitals, it wasn't just mine, I heard somebody say, and I'm sure he said it so I could hear him behind my back, you can't write music like that anymore, and, you just kind of like go, oh, okay, well, whatever. And so then I went to UC Berkeley, and I was going to be avant-garde, and then that was a total failure. And after one semester, I realized, no, guess not. Piece was really awful. So I think I can kind of relate to the feelings of inadequacy. You probably don't feel inadequate. Maybe I'm talking more for myself, because I had this like kind of very naive background compared to so many very sophisticated, or people that had very sophisticated backgrounds. So, but we're all here, so
that's true.
It's all good.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I have another very general question for you, and I'm excited to see what you decide to do with it. What are your thoughts on the trend towards women-only recital and concert programs and festivals that highlight female composers?
I think it's actually kind of fun. I kind of think of it as like a girls' night out. It could be, anyway. If you think of it that way, where you get, I've only been to one. I went to She Scores up in Cleveland just last summer. It was pretty fun, but there wasn't really much of a festival feel about it. It was just sort of like there were concerts in the evening. And I think that's just because people were working, but I guess it makes it feel sort of exclusive, though. And so that's kind of a question. But to be honest with you, I guess my preference would be for concerts or festivals, either one, that don't even just do new music, but actually are a mix and do new and old music. Because, otherwise it's there's all kind of ghettoization going on. But I don't know. I don't think it's bad to have festivals for just women. And I honestly, a lot of times these days, people are kind of bending backwards to program women and people of color and stuff like that, which is very nice.
A change.
But I don't know. I would like to go to one where it's truly a festival sometime and just sort of hang around, do the hanging out thing. I think that would be kind of fun.
Do you think that it might be, sort of a step towards integrating more female composers into festivals and programs, so that it's not such as you use the term ghettoization? Do you see this as kind of a stepping stone towards more integration, where it's not a big deal to program women because, of course, everyone's just thinking about great music to program, and a lot of that includes women?
Well, I would hope that would be the case, but I don't know how having festivals for women would actually make that happen, unless it was some kind of big prestigious festival. I think it would be more just about people building confidence. Let's get all of us like Streeter, Illinois people, New Lenox people together and have a festival.
Northern Illinois represent. That's a great perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way, but just getting a chance to be in a different kind of conversation and maybe a different kind of networking.
Yeah. Honestly, because I think ultimately the goal would be hopefully to be integrated. And like I said, for me, it would be to have new and, other music. But I realize it could get really big, of course, but I do think that there would be a real comfort in this kind of like other kind of festival where it's not necessarily about career, it's about just connecting, or making connections, or somebody knows somebody who might be interested in something that could be nice too, of course, but it would be really about this kind of girls' night out thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I like that. Well, we always like to round out our interviews with this favorite question of ours. What are 3 pieces that you're listening to right now?
Okay. Well, the Bach Brandenburg concertos. They're like my happy music.
Mm.
And these, were you thinking I was going to say new music pieces? Sorry.
No, I wasn't thinking anything.
Okay.
I always love the surprises.
They're called Purcell songs. Oh, what's the name of them? Well, the group is called L'Arpeggiata. Honestly, I can't remember the name of the CD, but it's about, music by Purcell.
Hmm.
And it's arranged in a jazz fashion.
Huh.
It's a mixture of old music, early music, and jazz. So it's just, I find it really incredible.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, I've played it for my students at CCM before. I've played them the original aria from the Dido and Aeneas.
Mm-hmm.
And then I play them the version on the CD, and they all like the first one better. And I'm like, wow, you guys don't like this other one. And, they even have a theorbo on it, this beautiful, deep sound, but then there's this jazz piano. So I've been listening to that. Those are like also happy pieces for me. And then the Beethoven string quartets, the late ones. I really love those. All kind of small music, right? Sort
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. I think I am kind of a small music composer. So it was very nice of my friend, though, to ask me to write this orchestra piece. So, and it did end up being fun, but I did avoid it for an entire year. That's why I'm late.
Do you have a projected premiere of that piece? Is anything scheduled for that we can?
Yeah, it's going to be it's the CCM Concert Orchestra. So the undergraduate orchestra, it's I think it's just September next year. I want to say the 29th, but I'm not sure.
Oh, wow. That's coming up.
Exciting.
Yeah, right. I know. So I showed him the almost finished score, I guess, in November, and that's when he decided he would go ahead and schedule it. But
good.
I haven't given him the full score. I should be able to finish it by the end of by next week sometime. But then there's all that formatting you have to do. So who knows about that?
Yeah. I was going to say the premiere sounds really exciting, but if there's formatting between you and the performance, I could see where there would still be some attachment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But that's all right. That's kind of mindless. You know what I mean? Well, it's not entirely, but it's a different brain part. So.
Well, we'll look for that hopefully on social media, maybe.
Yeah.
And we'll share it or something.
Okay. Thank you. That's great.
Well, this has been super fun.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Music Crush. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also support the podcast, read show notes, and learn more about FNMC by visiting www.flutenewmusicconsortium.com.